As of Wednesday, it'll be official. The U.S. will cease to be a member state of the Paris Agreement, a global climate accord that aims to keep global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius. It's the second time the U.S. has quit the agreement. Donald Trump previously withdrew in 2020 during his first term. The U.S. rejoined under Joe Biden, but shortly after the start of Trump's second term, he announced a renewed departure. The United States is the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases worldwide, and experts fear that its absence from the agreement will weaken efforts to tackle the global climate crisis. Let's speak now to Hannah Hundal, a climate activist and researcher at the Stanford School of Medicine. Good to have you with us. What will be the consequences of this decision by the U.S., in the U.S. rather, and also globally?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. The consequences will be enormous. Just to sort of familiar with the twist, the situation is a little bit of tragically par for the course and a little bit of tragically different as well. Here's what's the same. We know that President Trump has sought to roll back U.S. participation in environmental protection and climate action for a long time now. In his first term in office, he did try to withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Agreement as well. Here's the difference, though. This time around, President Biden isn't going to be coming back in office in just a few more months to put us back into the agreement, which is what happened last time. In addition, we know that President Trump is not only trying to withdraw us from the Paris Agreement, which is going to take effect very soon, but also the UN Framework Convention for Climate Change, which is the overarching treaty from which agreements like the Paris one spring forth. So this is a really tragic situation in terms of the stakes at this moment in time, and also just this fundamental erosion of the underlying infrastructure for global climate cooperation that is being rolled back at a pace and severity that we really haven't seen before.
Speaking of climate cooperation, you've been to several of the UN climate change conferences, 5 of them, I believe. What will it look like when there's a US absence when it comes to reaching resolutions and agreements?
Yeah, we got a bit of a taste of that in Belém in Brazil at the last UN climate conference just a couple months ago. The U.S. did not send a high-level delegation, and the absence was acutely felt. I mean, we have to remember that the U.S. is the largest historical emitter of greenhouse gases, so their lack of participation in efforts to address climate change, of which they're a key contributor to propagating, cannot be overstated in terms of how disappointing that is and how much it can really open up a permission structure for other countries to let their own commitments fall short. So I think the reverberations are definitely felt, and it will really remain to be seen at this upcoming climate conference in Turkey, who kind of fills that vacuum and that void of leadership, because we know it won't be the U.S.
And considering how pivotal the U.S. is, and it's in one time, out again, in again, what would that look like? Would the U.S. likely join again, and what would that mean for the stability of these kinds of conventions?
I think it remains an open question. Look, President Biden, he came into office just a couple of months after President Trump took us out of the Paris Agreement in his last term. So he was relatively easily able to put us back in. At this point in time, we don't know if a future president will have the political will to do that, actually be able to do that in terms of these sort of fraying climate partnerships now with the U.S. withdrawing for a second time. Will we actually be able to repair that damage? I don't know. And I think that remains an open question. We also know that a lot of other countries have really forcefully put out these messages saying that we need to stick to these climate agreements. Just last year, the EU and China actually put out a joint statement together saying that these climate agreements, people should still abide by them despite changes in political leadership in different countries. So I think there's a real call for the U.S. to recognize that this is a global effort, and it's been something decades in the making, and it's a real disappointment to pass the ball at this point.
And we're running out of time. Just 30 seconds, if you may. I mean, we're seeing that the climate and weather records are being broken again and again and again. Will this trend continue?
Unfortunately, at this current rate, we have not done what we need to do in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions to keep global average temperature increase no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, which was the whole goal of the Paris Agreement. So unfortunately, that seems to be the path that we're on.
Hannah Hundal, climate change researcher at the Stanford School of Medicine. We appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you.